A documentary, The Cushing House, in Newburyport, Massachusetts, by Samantha Beck. The Cushing House is a federal-style home that represents the time period in which the Cushings lived and the economic and political influence they had on Newburyport, Massachusetts, and the United States. Newburyport was originally part of Newbury, an agricultural town. The people of Newbury, who settled on the south banks of the Merrimack River, didn't have much in the way of a town around them, so they eventually decided to develop their area more. They took advantage of their nearby water and refocused their life on the trades of the sea, such as shipbuilding, commerce, and fishing. These pioneers developed this area into a water-based community and, in 1764, split from Newbury and formed Newburyport. The Merrimack River was the power source of the economy of Newburyport for over 100 years. During the Revolutionary War, Newburyport shipowners were commissioned through letters of marque and paid by the government to become privateers because America didn't have a navy. Privateering greatly added to the incomes of shipowners. Privateers were paid based on the worth and quantity of ships they captured. The maritime industry in Newburyport was thriving between 1776 and 1810 for other reasons as well. Newburyport became one of the greatest shipbuilding centers in New England. The merchant fleet increased from 118 vessels of 12,000 tons in 1790 to 176 vessels of 30,000 tons in 1806. Newburyport was the birthplace of the U.S. Navy because of its thriving shipbuilding industry. The successful shipbuilding led to a thriving trade environment. Newburyport was the third most prosperous port in Massachusetts. A few of our exports included tea, bourbon, rum, tobacco, corn, and flour. Some imports included cloth goods, hardware, wine, gunpowder, molasses, and sugar. By 1807, the tonnage of foreign trade in Massachusetts was 37% of the total tonnage for the U.S. The fleet of 1807 was bringing home about $15.5 million per year in freight. This area was bustling, which is why it had a strong impact on its people and its nation. For 100 years, duties collected by the Customs House in Newburyport on imports and exports were the country's main source of income and were responsible for the early development of our nation. This helped the country earn revenue following the Revolutionary War, which was vital at this time. Between 1783 and 1860, trade, shipbuilding, and fishing were the most profitable industries in Newburyport and the entire nation. During this era, the U.S. began emerging as a world power. Merchants in Newburyport were able to become wealthy due to water-based businesses. They began building federal-style mansions, which were large homes, generally with 3 levels. Jobs were created for the construction of these homes. Once these homes were built, merchants had to hire people to work in and furnish the homes, such as carriage house tenders, maids, gardeners, artisans, etc. Demand for help with the upkeep had a positive impact on the economy, and people even began working outside of the shipbuilding industry. Federal-style homes especially left their mark on the well-known High Street in Newburyport, the site of the Cushing House. The Cushing House was built in 1808 by sea captain William Hunt. However, Hunt died before he could move into the home. In 1818, Hunt's widow sold half the home to John Newmarch Cushing, and the Cushings later bought the other half in 1823. 3 generations of Cushings prospered from the sea as ship captains and merchants. John Newmarch Cushing had 3 sons, William, John, and most notably Caleb. Caleb Cushing had an incredible impact on the economic and political lives of the people of Newburyport and the country. After graduating from Harvard Law School, he began his law career in 1821. He was a very successful lawyer, author, scholar, senator, and congressman. He became the editor of the Herald newspaper in 1822, the first mayor of Newburyport in 1851, U.S. Attorney General under President Pierce in 1853, and President of the National Democratic Convention in 1860. Some people say that Caleb was even in line to be President of the United States. Caleb was thought to be one of the most intelligent men of his time, and he was treated as such. Following the deaths of John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, and General Lafayette, Cushing was asked by the citizens of Newburyport to deliver the eulogy on those men. In 1834, Caleb was elected as a representative to the 24th U.S. Congress, and over the next 10 years, Caleb left a huge mark on our history. He was the head of the House Committee of Foreign Affairs, and in 1843, he was appointed the first U.S. ambassador to China to establish our first trade treaty with the Chinese. In the midst of the Opium War, the Chinese signed the Treaty of Nanking with the British, granting them certain privileges in trade that many other nations, including the U.S., did not have. It was widely understood that in order to become a world power, a mission to China was essential to stabilize our growing trade. After months of negotiations in China, the Treaty of Wanghia was signed in 1844, granting U.S. ships entrance to 5 Chinese ports, extraterritoriality to U.S. citizens in China, peace between the two nations, protection for U.S. merchant vessels in Chinese waters, and the U.S. President the right to have open communication with the Emperor of China from now on, a right that only Russia had at the time. Because of his law background, Caleb knew exactly what terms to ask for in order to protect the U.S. citizens in China. The new trade relationship acted as a catalyst for further development of U.S. commerce. In 1848, there were 68 U.S. ships at the Chinese port of Canton, 20 at Shanghai, and 8 at Amoy. This treaty, signed by Caleb Cushing, was said to have started a new era in Chinese-American relations and in the U.S. economy. Cushing House symbolizes the thriving Newburyport, Massachusetts, and United States economy at the time due to the wealth earned from maritime trade. The Cushings were a perfect example of a family who prospered from the sea and made an incredible impact on the history of our country, mainly because of Caleb Cushing's actions. The Cushing House, sometimes called the Caleb Cushing House, honors the all-important Cushing family and helps us to remember how it was that the United States built up through maritime trade to the successful and powerful nation that we are today, and so created a desirable place for all people to come and to live what we call the American dream.